Sage Wanderer here, and welcome to Fighting 101, Stick Fighting Level 2. Now, as usual, before we get into the hands-on portion of the class, there'll be a short lecture. And I want to address a troll with the call sign Miller, who's been coming on my channel and telling you to stay in my lane. I have a message for you, my friend. This is my freaking lane. I don't know why you think I'm not qualified to occupy this lane. Maybe it's because you think I'm too old. Well, old people are the ones who refine martial arts and teach it to the young. Don't get it twisted. Do I have to point out Mr. Miyagi? Okay. Or maybe it's because you think I'm out of shape. Guess what? I'm not out of shape anymore, pal. I'm 194 pounds of man-crushing steel. I have abs. You ought to see my, you know what? You ought to see my freak. This is where I strut around because I lost 90 pounds and I earned the right.
My legs look like they're chiseled out of stone. In fact, my legs are so freaking hard and chiseled and lean right now that after a day working out, they just ache because there's nothing but muscle. And now I'm in the best shape. I mean, look at my arms. Look at this. I want to strip naked and just strut around because.
So it can't be because I'm not in good enough shape. Why do you think I should stay in my lane? You know what it is? I think that you don't appreciate the concept of mixed martial arts. Miller, you are a purist. You're somebody who thinks that you have to lay out cash money, buy yourself a black belt in some recognized dojo down in a strip center to call yourself a martial artist. And that couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, that little scenario of buying yourself a black belt and going through so many classes is blasphemous to people that are true martial artists, because you don't buy the skill. Just like the Karate Kid, I hate to keep bringing the movie back up, but it's based in the tradition of martial arts. You learn it from an old person who chooses you, who chooses to teach you. You don't buy it. So your bought black belt is just going to get your ass kicked. I'm sorry, that's all it's good for, is getting your ass kicked. You know why? Because the commercialized martial arts they're selling down there at the Karate Hut, okay? It's the McDonald's version of food. It's like saying that McDonald's is a 5-star restaurant because they get their food out on time. You can't buy the kind of mixed martial arts education that I have. I got mine by mentoring under masters, by hanging around dojos where other people are paying and intriguing the teachers enough to get them to teach me on the side at no charge. And many times it's because I had something to trade. I had some other martial arts skills that they were not privy to, and we would trade, we would barter. And this is kind of what gave birth to what we now call mixed martial arts. What you're looking at, Mr. Miller, is an original OG founding father of the mixed martial arts movement. That it's guys like me doing Fight Club and backyard wrestling and lots of illegal bare knuckle fighting in the back. I've put people in the hospital 3 or 4 different times, trying not to hurt them. But that's how extensive true sparring is. You get busted up just like war. So don't tell me to stay in my lane, pal, Mr. Karate Hut graduate. The bottom line is, I am the holder of a unique combination of martial arts that will destroy anyone who tries to hurt me. And I don't really care how high up you are in whatever martial art you're in. The only way you beat me is if your physical fitness, your size, your age, and all of that manage to defeat my art and your experience and your own fighting skill. I'm not saying I can't be beaten. I will say this, that if you beat me, you will walk away blind, because I will touch your eyeball and you can't stop me. You understand that you may kill me, but I will scar you and maim you for life in the process. And so because that becomes evident in the first couple of seconds of an encounter with me, that almost always end with the person fighting me breaking away because they didn't intend to give up an eye socket, or they didn't intend to have their face ripped out with a fish hook. And I'll explain what that is in another video. They didn't expect to have their knee destroyed so that they would have to have an artificial knee put in if they wanted to walk again. So the art that I teach you, it's not an art. It's fighting. That's why this is called Fighting 101. And what you're going to start to see unroll today in the back half of this video is that I'm going to show you how my hand-to-hand fighting skills, my stick fighting skills, my knife fighting skills, my sword fighting skills, and my gun fighting skills are all intertwined, related, and the same martial art of my own design. And you can adapt your shooting method to my martial art. You can. I'll show you how, so you don't have to learn to relearn to shoot if you already shoot some method that's different than mine, because it's the way that you approach the fight that's different. And so in today's video, I'm going to show you, and I think Miller, if you're still watching, I don't think you watch the videos. I think you just look at the thumbnail and go, that's a fat old man in glasses. How can he be a fighter? You probably couldn't fight your way out of a paper bag, Miller. Really, I think you're probably a kid. Tell me, stay in my lane. Screw you! I own this lane! I helped build it! This is my lane! So let's talk about mixed martial arts. And I haven't really sold my art because, honestly, I wasn't trying to sell anything. This is being offered for free on the internet. The only reason I'm teaching fighting right now is because a lot of my older, less capable physically viewers were wanting some basic tips on self-defense so they would at least be able to fight back on some level. So just like a sensei who picks a young student and decides to teach them, I decided to help these marginalized people learn how to defend themselves. And in my opinion, the art I developed over years and years of swapping chops with master martial artists of various sorts, I've compiled what I believe to be the most deadly martial art for people, especially for people who are physically challenged. And that this will not only help you get in shape, but it will give you, because, you know, the basics of what I do is like everything else I do. I tried to find the quickest point between A and B. I want to be able to defeat a trained fighter, and I want to be able to do it so fast that they can't wrap their brain around what just happened to them. So that led me, first of all, to some of the most brutal martial arts on the planet. So let's talk a little bit about what Sage mixed martial arts are all about.
Krav Maga is a military self-defense and fighting system developed for the Israeli Defense Forces and is derived from a combination of techniques sourced from Aikido, boxing, wrestling, judo, and karate.
Krav Maga is a mixed martial art. It's just brutal. In any ring in the world, all of the Krav Maga moves would be completely illegal, okay? Because it's cheating on the highest level. Muay Thai.
Muay Thai is a martial art and combat sport that uses stand-up striking along with various clinching techniques. This discipline is known as the art of 8 limbs, as it is characterized by the combined use of fists, elbows, knees, and shins.
Muay Thai is one of the most devastating and damaging and destructive sports on the planet. It is a sport. It is the national sport of Thailand. And the sport is designed to allow a 5'4", 115-pound Thai man to defend himself against a 6'1", 190-pound, Anglo man. Or pick any other race where the men are typically bigger than, say, Asians. And it's not racist to point out that Asians are small and that most of the basketball team is black or white and most of the football team is black or white. Size matters. In fighting, it makes a difference. So the Thai developed a martial art that became their national sport, designed to compensate for their small stature. And so it's vicious, it's bloody, and it's brutal. And even though it's a sport, it's probably the most brutal sport. It's up there with what we call UFC fighting or mixed martial art or cage fighting now. And it's tried and true on the street as a self-defense method. And so then you've got another martial art that I drew from, not for the art so much for the philosophy of it. And it's called Jeet Kune Do.
The concept of Jeet Kune Do was conceived by Bruce Lee based on his experiences in unarmed fighting and self-defense. Lee came to realize the error of binding oneself to a systemized martial art and denounced the Jun Fan Gung Fu form he was trained in.
Might laugh that it's a movie kung fu, but it's really not. In fact, many people believe if you have some coffee and some do time, we'll do a coffee talk on whether Bruce Lee was murdered by the Asian martial arts community for disseminating secret martial art practices and methods to Anglos in America, and that teaching people, not just Anglos, non-Asians, non-Chinese, right, non-Kung Fu practitioners.
Lee began to passionately work on research and practice in order to refine his way of practicing martial arts, and he unintentionally gave birth to the idea of mixing arts.
It's the whole idea behind mixed martial arts. It was invented by Bruce Lee, who mixed fencing and boxing and kung fu and any other kind of art he could find that was useful, and he would piece it together into his own personalized martial art. And so he invented the MMA idea. And his chief protege is a man named Dan Insanto. And whereas Bruce Lee's martial art is stemmed and steeped in kung fu, Dan Insanto's martial art is steeped in the Filipino martial arts, specifically Filipino stick fighting. So my art is very much a combination of Muay Thai, Filipino stick fighting, the philosophy of Jeet Kune Do, the elements of mixed martial arts, which include a variety of moves and maneuvers and whole types of fighting, subcategories of fighting in my martial art that harken back to Japanese jiu-jitsu. They're related to Hapkido. The philosophy of Hapkido is very big in what I do. You will see that in the locks and the throws and the non-striking elements of what I do. And I think I've seamlessly combined Filipino stick fighting and Muay Thai into something that's peculiar and just my own. And I do know Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu a little bit. I do know that the cure for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is the headbutt in the guard position. It's how Dan Severinsen would have been the king of the UFC had they not outlawed the headbutt. When they outlawed the headbutt, it caused the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu organization out of Brazil, the Gracies, to rise to the top because they took away the one tool that destroys Brazilian ground fighting, and that is the headbutt. Now, it doesn't render it totally useless. It's just a major tool against it that you can't use. And some people will say, well, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is the best martial arts because it's on the UFC. Well, you're not allowed to fish hook in the UFC. You're not allowed to eye gouge. You're not allowed to grab someone's testicles and try to rip them off. You're not allowed to bite, right? You're not allowed to kick somebody when they're on the ground anymore. You used to be able to just curb stomp somebody, but you can't. So it's real easy to become this elitist, purist martial art when you're protected by the rules. And ultimately, what works on the street is the only thing that matters, okay? So this combination is really, it's very much related to JKD for the Street, which is an organization out of LA. It's very much related to Dog Brothers, which is a Northern California stick fighting group. But my method is more Asian, I would say. I think that the stick fighting from the Dog Brothers off the West Coast is a little more brutal and a little less finesse than what I teach. But let's get on to the stick. We talked about the stick briefly before, how it's a substitute for the sword. Let's talk about my magic stick. So my stick I found in an antique store for like $10 in Golden, Colorado. And at first glance, it looks like a pretty petite little stick. It's only about 1 inch in diameter at its end and at this, what one might consider a weak point, where this is actually, there we go, get it in focus, is actually rounded out here in the center to down to about 1 inch. But it's what this stick is made out of that makes it so awesome. This stick is made out of briar wood from the old country. So this is what is known as an Irish shillelagh. Okay, this isn't a Filipino stick fighting stick. This is not a scrimma stick. A scrimma stick is round. Everything I teach you will work on this stick or on an eskrima stick or on a half of a pull cue or on a table leg or whatever. Okay, that's the beauty of stick fighting. It'll also work as a sword, a single-edged sword. You don't want to try these techniques with a double-edged sword. Like the Bible says, the Bible is a double-edged sword. The Word of God is a double-edged sword. It cuts on both directions. And so single-edged sword, like a saber or any kind of short sword, and this stick and an eskrima stick, all of this is transferable. This shillelagh is a little bit magic though, because this was owned, I firmly believe, by a fighter. This thing is so perfectly balanced. But I won't drone on about my stick made out of briarwood. Just so you know what briarwood is, it's what they make pipes out of. Those very expensive tobacco pipes, because the wood's so hard it doesn't burn up in the fire. So, on to the lesson from here. This is where we're going to take. Now, before I proceed, if you have not seen stick fighting, introduction to stick fighting and sword, okay, that's quite a bit back. I was a little fatter back then. Some of the elements of that video are in the intro to this video series. And so you need to see those, and you really need to see the last couple of hand-to-hand ones I did, because those elements now I'm going to tie to the stick and the sword. And you're going to see how eventually I'm going to tie this to the handgun, the submachine gun, the combat shotgun, and the rifle. Although to get those videos in the future, you will have to go over to Rumble, because they're more likely to let me teach you those kinds of more intricate details. First thing we're going to talk about is the stick position and the way you hold the stick. In Lesson 1, Introduction to Stick Fighting, I talked to you about having this grip, which is an open grip. This is the Bruce Lee grip, okay? It's the Kung Fu grip. It's actually the Kung Fu grip. So Dog Brothers out of California have this closed grip. And it's just because in their sparring, they've seen their sticks go flying so much. But this martial art is designed to not be in a prolonged stick fight with someone, okay? This is designed to end the fight before they can even get their stick up, okay? So this grip is all about speed, right? It isn't so much about strength as it is speed and velocity. So the way you get terminal ballistics in a firearm is you times the weight of the bullet times the speed of the bullet equals a coefficient number that tells you the terminal ballistics of a round. So the same is true with stick fighting. You can have a big stick that moves slow and it's going to be devastating like a ball bat. Or you can have a little light stick, right, that happens really fast. And that speed, that Bruce Lee speed, okay, comes from the open grip and the kind of the Dan and Santo behind the arm open grip hold of a stick, okay? So, you might already have noticed, if you're a student of last week's lessons and you've seen them, that when I do this with this stick in my hand in this position, and I turtle up, now look what's happened. See, I taught you the turtle up. Remember, let's just recap that. We're going to turtle up, okay? So I taught you how to turtle up, protect your face, turn into a block. That's the worst case scenario. Really, you want to parry. You want to pivot off center. You want to turn the fight. You want to keep them resetting. You want to circle them. You don't want to take a blow, but if you take a blow, don't take it out here on your arm like that. Take that blow right there. Boom. Across two limbs, dispersing the energy of the strike. So when you have the open-handed grip, okay, I showed you the open-handed grip. This makes for that lightning fast whip of a strike. Whap! Whap! Okay? If I hit my camera with this stick, it's done. So I cannot make that mistake. But honestly, I think I'm more accurate with a stick than I am with my hands. This stick anyway. This is the magic stick I've had for years. So, back to what I was saying. When you turtle up, right, and you have the stick in the back position, now when you turtle up, what's happened? Now I have a stick between me and that blow. Now I'm behind a cage of wood and bone in a triangle shape, which is one of the strongest shapes. The pyramid shape is one of those strongest shapes in architecture. And so it's up there with the arch. So it's stronger than the arch. So this pyramid brace, like this, triangle block, with this stick, whoo, is very effective against a blocking against a stick, a strike, a kick, a beer bottle, whatever. Boom. okay? So now you can see how me teaching you what people thought, oh, that's stupid. He's teaching them to cover their head like a little kid. He's teaching them to turtle up and not get hurt. Well, it's going to translate into knife fighting, sword fighting, and you guessed it, gunfighting is next, okay? And so the triangle block now looks different with the stick in the open position, okay? You have the closed position, you can do it too. This is a much stronger block as well. This is what I would call the Dog Brothers block. Because the Dog Brothers, they teach you never to open your grip. But I teach you to have a fluid grip and use the flip of the stick and your wrist and your arm instead of just your arm and your shoulder. They teach you to hack. Not all of them, but they have this stick forward kind of, you know, this kind of thing going on, which is nothing wrong with that. And it's based in art, in the Filipino art. It's just I prefer the Kung Fu edge of the open hand, which is like the staff. It's the Kung Fu staff grip. And so I really prefer that open grip and that whip that happens when you really release that speed, okay? Remember, mass times speed. So if you have a bigger stick or a method where it's more powerful, right, and there's less swing, you're moving at a slower momentum, I'm going to get more impact from speed combined with some weight. So what I really want to do, once again, what's the method? Hit them hard, hit them fast, and end the fight before they can even get winded, okay? Before you even get winded. That's what you cannot do when you're an older person, if you have breathing issues, if your cardio is not that great, if you're a little heavy, you know, or you have bad whatever, that you're going to have to you're going to want to destroy them immediately and end the fight. You don't want it to drag out until your lack of stamina becomes an issue, right? So all of this stuff is designed to end a fight quickly. So once again, triangle block is the same, but with the stick in this position, or I can just really grip the stick and close that up and take it over my back this way as well into a stronger block. Remember, this other hand needs to stay up here too. So we're covered up either way, okay? We're covered up. In fact, you might want to practice. I practice my elbows for a reason. This is also how you get quickly to a triangle block. It's not just a strike, it's a block, okay? And last week, if you haven't learned this last week, go back and learn, but we'll talk about how we turned the triangle block into a hammer fist. Triangle block, hammer fist. Triangle block, hammer fist. Remember from last week? Now, I'm going to step back so I don't hit my camera. Now, okay, turtle up, hammer fist, but now we're just going to open it all the way through and bring the stick all the way around. So it was a hammer fist, right? Now we're just going to break all the way through and swing the shoulder. Now it's a stick strike. You understand how everything I teach you now is going to be multiple use tools. So one motion, this motion is my defense, it's my offense, it's my barehanded, it's my stick, okay? It's my elbow. Hammer fist is also my stick strike. And you're gonna want to, here's what you're gonna want to make sure you do is that you clear your head here. What you don't want to do is take your own head off. Rookie mistake, don't do that. And you're gonna do that by pulling your head back and lifting this arm up. Whew, to get the overhand strike there. Okay. Another method of the turtle up hammer fist is with a butt strike. There's two ends to this stick. There's two ends to a sword. This is called a pummel. And one of the reasons I taught you a hammer fist, and there's some martial arts, and you know what? What was his name? Killer Miller over there, Mr. McCarty. One of the reasons he might not like me is because I taught you a hammer fist, and he thinks hammer fists are jokes. They could be jokes if you use them the way that karate teaches you to use them. They are a joke. A spinning back fist, give me a break. Spinning, break the back of your hand move is what that ought to be called, right? But a hammer fist with a sword in your hand is called a pummel strike. It's a pummel strike. It's a pummel strike. Duh. I forgot more about fighting than you know, Mr. Miller. So, back to we're going to block, boom. We're going to hammer fist, but actually it's a strike, right? It's a stick strike, okay? Or we're going to pummel strike. We're going to elbow up, and then we're just going to pummel strike. Pummel strike, pummel strike, pummel strike. Miss the pummel strike, Catch him with the end of the stick. Pummel strike, end of the stick. Pummel, swat. Pummel, swat. Pummel, swat. I am an effective fighter. And it's because I combined the worst and most devastating and most brutal martial arts I could find into one place. And I designed it so I could do it even when I was old. You can see how in sword fighting, and later on when we're involved in different forms of sword fighting, as I teach you the knife portion and the sword portion of what I'm showing you, you can see how that the hammer fist now is obviously it's a pummel strike. It's an angled pummel strike. Hammer fist, pummel strike. Okay? And remember, if you're turtling up, don't forget the bottom part. That's going to come in later. That's going to come in later. All right? It's going to come in later, but don't forget. You got to be able to get that leg up, right? Because if a blow comes in, you got to be able to get up off it so you can counter strike and fight it off if you're stick fighting or you're sword fighting or whatever it is. And so keep up practicing those things. Once again, recap how the stick works in with last week's lesson. We started with the turtling up. Now we're going to add the stick in the open position. Turtled up like that. The hammer fist, all right, over the top is now a pummel strike. Boom. Turtle up, boom. We learned how to transition that by closing the grip and finishing the spin on the stick. We can turn that pummel strike now into an actual spinning strike. Whew. And once again, this is always the back of the blade. You'll see later when we start practicing with swords that this back of the blade here can't hurt you as long as you know where the back and the front is. You got to know that. And I try to keep that position with this grip on the stick. Okay, so this never rolls in my hand. It's always oriented the same way. I could put a mark on it, but I don't need to. I've got it locked in. All right, so turtle up, return strike. So this is a block and a counter strike. Block and a counter strike. And the footwork with that is a step back. So it's a block, step back, out of their range, counter strike. Let's practice that. Block, counter strike. Block, counter strike. Block, counter strike. Block, and now if you go into pummel, if you want to pummel strike like a hammer fist, remember you step in for that. Pummel up, step in, pummel. Turtle up, step in, pummel. Whew. Whew. Over the top. Whew. Over the top. Over the top. Same as an elbow strike. It's just the return. You could even elbow strike and return with a pummel strike. Elbow strike and return with a pummel strike. And you can control range by dipping in and out. By stepping in and out. In and out of the range. So, turtle up, step back, counter strike. Turtle up, step back, counter strike. In fact, this little move right here, just get good at doing that. It creates space. Okay. In future videos, we're going to teach you how a lot of this positioning and the bent elbows and the way that I'm using this stick is going to show you how to use your shotgun, your pistol, your rifle as a weapon. But that's for future lessons. We'll see you next time on Fighting 101.